Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Jimmy Dore Show. I have my Bobby Brady shirt on. What do you think?
You sure do. Hi, Bobby.
Hi. But it's got the nice cuffs. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the debate. Oh, I wanted to do this. Well, how come that thing didn't go? There you go. I'm supposed to start like that. Gave you a tease already. So we're talking about the debates now. I watched the whole debate. Steph, did you watch the whole debate?
I sure did, Jimmy.
So
I stayed awake for the whole debate.
It was tough for me because I was smoking pot to get through it. It was tough to get through this debate. It was boring again. The problem is they have four people asking questions that don't know how to ask a question. Every question was dumber than the first. Hey, what would be the first thing you would say to Vladimir Putin if you? What is this, high school? Are you guys running for prom king? Anyway, it was horrible. And MSNBC is horrible. They're horrible. They are an arm of the security state. They are riddled with fucking CIA talking heads. Go ahead.
You mean you didn't enjoy that every moderator's first question went to Elizabeth Warren?
Oh, my God. Anyway, so let's get to this part. So the part I want to talk about here is Tulsi Gabbard goes after the front runner in Iowa, Pete Buttigieg. And other people should have gone after him. They didn't. Kamala Harris completely let him off the hook. He just got caught manufacturing black support. He just got caught doing that. And then he doubled down on it when he got caught. And nobody took a shot at him for it. So the only person with enough balls to go after him, of course, is this Tulsi Gabbard, whose whole career now is taking the piss out of the establishment. And there's no bigger neoliberal establishment tool than Pete Buttigieg, and she went right at him, and here it is.
I want to get back to Pete Buttigieg and his comment about experience. Pete, you'll agree that the service that we both have provided to our country as veterans by itself does not qualify us to serve as commander-in-chief. I think the most recent example of your inexperience in national security and foreign policy came from your recent careless statement about how you as president would be willing to send our troops to Mexico to fight the cartels. As commander-in-chief, leader of our armed forces, I bring extensive experience serving for 7 years in Congress, on the Foreign Affairs Committee, on the Armed Services Committee, on the Homeland Security Committee, meeting with leaders of countries around the world, working with military commanders of different commands, dealing with high-level national security briefings, understanding what's necessary, the preparation that I've gotten to walk in on day one to serve as Commander-in-Chief.
Congresswoman, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'll allow you to respond.
I know.
So she went after him for casually saying that we would absolutely send troops. That's what he said. I'll show you the quote in a second. But he did say that. And by the way, so when she did that, that was good because she's showing the recklessness of guys like Pete Buttigieg, who are tools of the military-industrial complex, and he's willing to send troops anywhere, even Mexico, to fight drug wars. That was the point of that, and it was right on. And guys like Secular Talk, he was all over it. Tulsi calls out Pete for casually saying he might send U.S. troops to Mexico for the drug war. Take him down. Bam, bam. So here's his response.
I know that it's par for the course in Washington to take remarks out of context, but that is outlandish even by the standards of today's politics.
Are you saying that you didn't say that?
I was talking about U.S.-Mexico cooperation. We've been doing security cooperation with Mexico for years, with law enforcement cooperation and a military relationship that could continue to be developed with training relationships, for example. Do you seriously think anybody on this stage is proposing invading Mexico?
So now, first of all, look how pinched his upper... Like, he's really angry that she did this. And so he comes back with something that he again, this is a good tactic. You can get away with it. He got away with this. He says, do you really think, well, here's what he says.
It's not what I said.
He says, do you really think anybody is seriously considering invading Mexico up on the stage? Which gets a laugh from the crowd. Right? You're going to invade Mexico, right? Seems silly. That's not what she said. She said you would be willing to send American troops to Mexico to fight drug cartels. She didn't say you were going to invade. That's not what she said. So he switched it disingenuously, and she calls him out. She says,
I'm talking about building up alliances. And if your question is about experience, let's all...
That's not. So that isn't what she. So he totally gaslights everybody by saying that she said something else. She didn't say that. And then he goes back to the tired old smear. They can never attack or fight Tulsi on her policy. They always got to go for the smear, and here it comes.
Talk about judgment. One of the foreign leaders you mentioned meeting was Bashar al-Assad. I have, in my experience, such as it is, whether you think it counts or not, since it wasn't accumulated in Washington, enough judgment that I would not have sat down with a murderous dictator like that.
Congresswoman Gabbard, let me allow you to respond.
Thank you. You were asked directly whether you would send our troops to Mexico to fight cartels, and your answer was yes. The fact checkers can check this out. No. But your point about judgment is absolutely correct. Our commander-in-chief does need to have good judgment. And what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation. I take the example of those leaders who...
That was a great response. And believe me, he is not liking this. When she said, what you just revealed is that you lack the courage necessary to be the commander-in-chief, which requires meeting with our adversaries. She's right about it 1,000%. They did the same thing that when John McCain ran against Barack Obama. He said, I would meet with anybody, anywhere, if it meant securing peace of the United States. And John McCain hammered him on that. You would meet with Ahmadinejad, the guy who said he wants to wipe Israel off. That's what they would do to Barack Obama. Barack Obama was like, I would meet with anybody. And so that's that's all they got. That's all they got. And I think people are seeing through it. So here, let's see.
Can I just add that as soon as she said the fact checkers
can
check, I did immediately.
And he did say that, but we're going to get to it.
Great.
Yeah.
Come before us. Leaders like JFK, who met with Khrushchev, like Roosevelt, who met with Stalin,
like Donald Trump,
Reagan,
who met.
And so he said, again, now that's another cheap shot. What would you want Donald Trump to do? Not meet with Kim in North Korea? Would you rather he just be bellicose and threaten nuclear war? Be a saber rattler?
And not care about South Korea?
Right.
Because South Korea also is invested in this.
That's right.
Like Reagan, who met and worked with Gorbachev. These issues of national security are incredibly important. I will meet with and do what is necessary to make sure that no more of our brothers and sisters in uniform are needlessly sent into harm's way fighting regime change wars that undermine our national security. I'll bring real leadership and experience to the White House.
That was very good. She did a really good job there. And all Pete Buttigieg had was a smear. That's all he had was a lazy, cheap smear. That's all he had. And then later on in the night, Kamala Harris did the same thing. Like, when you guys use the exact same talking points, don't you think people see through them? Here's what, and I go back to secular talk. He goes, Mayor Pete attacks Tulsi for meeting Assad. Real bold, fresh, new line of attack. And what I say, Tulsi takes a swing at Buttigieg over sending troops to Mexico. He exposes himself by responding with cheap shots. That's not a leader. That's a corporate coward. That's what that was. Do you see how he crumbled immediately when he was challenged in public? Immediately over the one little thing. Over one little thing. And it's about his willingness to send military troops anywhere to do anything. By the way, that got almost, 6,000 something likes. That's a very successful tweet for me. I don't say that to puff up my ego, but to tell you that a lot of people agree with it. Also, Kyle Kalinski's tweet had 3,000 when he criticized Buttigieg over this. Over 3,000 likes. So Glenn Greenwald caught this. Barack Obama would say this, and he said this in a debate when asked, would you be willing to meet with anybody in the world without preconditions? And Barack Obama said, I'd be willing to meet without precondition during the first year I'm in my administration in Washington or anywhere else with the leaders of Iran, Syria, Venezuela, Cuba, or North Korea to bridge the gap that divides our countries. So Pete Buttigieg, I guess he's also critical of Barack Obama for saying he would meet with all those people. that Tulsi also advocates for. Okay, so now let's get, so here is Pete Buttigieg's communications director. He decided to, they're trying to pretend like Tulsi was mischaracterizing what he said. She wasn't. So he tweets this out. Since Tulsi asked for a fact check, yes, Pete was talking about U.S.-Mexico security assistance. Always happy to tweet a transcript. So he tweets the transcript. This is the transcript of him being asked, would you be willing, like Trump, to send our troops to Mexico to fight drug cartels? This is the do you see all this is the question. Here's the question. Mr. Mayor, after a number of Americans were murdered in northern Mexico, President Trump suggested sending U.S. troops to Mexico to deal with the cartels. With your military experience, is there a way to deal with the cartels that doesn't violate Mexico's sovereignty? He says all of this stuff. He says all of this, which is Mayor Pete being vague, like he always is, but sounding super smart. So vague that after he says all of this, the moderator asks the question again and says, but Mayor, specifically, do you see a time when troops can go into Mexico if Mexico welcomed it, for instance? She has to ask the question again because he obfuscated. That's his answer. So then he does answer, and here's the bottom. The last sentence in this is, but we could absolutely be in some partnership role if and only if it is welcomed by our partner south of the... So if Mexico wants us to come in and fight drug cartels in Mexico, he says absolutely we could do that. Absolutely. He said that. That's his answer. That's what it says. That's the word right there. It's too small, but I'm showing it to you. And here's the video. Should I bore you with the video? It's 2 minutes long.
After a number of Americans were murdered in northern Mexico, President Trump suggested sending U.S. troops to help Mexico deal with the cartels. With your military experience, is there a way to deal with the cartels that doesn't violate Mexico's sovereignty?
So here's my question to show how reckless Trump is and all this stuff. And I'm not reckless, but I will do the exact same thing Trump is saying. Okay, here we go.
Alienating those very countries that we need to have a better partnership with. Remember, it is in the interest of both the United States and Mexico for Mexico to prosper with greater economic success and security than they have right now. So if it is in the context of a security partnership, then I would welcome ways to make sure that America is doing what we can to ensure that our neighbor to the south is secure.
So he said he would welcome ways. He would welcome ways to figure out how we could do a military partnership with Mexico. He just said we'd welcome it.
But doing it in a way that calls into question Mexican sovereignty completely misses how we got here. And by the way, a lot of this is a question of the demand side on the United States.
He just keeps going. He just keeps talking.
Is make drug trafficking less profitable by walking away from the failed war on drugs here in the United States. That is a policy that we know through experience hasn't worked. We have to do our part here at home.
Okay, so here she goes. She has to ask it again.
But Mayor, specifically, do you see a time when troops could go into Mexico if Mexico welcomed it, for instance?
There is a scenario where we could have security cooperation as we do with countries around the world.
So that's a yes.
I would only order American troops into conflict if there were no other choice, if American lives were on the line, and if this were necessary in order for us to uphold our treaty obligations. But we could absolutely be in some kind of partnership role if and only if it is welcomed by our partners south of the border.
We could absolutely be in a military partnership with our friends south of the border if it's welcomed. So, yeah, so if the president of Mexico, so he's basically saying, I agree with Trump. We should send our military into Mexico to fight drug cartels if the president of Mexico asks us. That's what he just said. Tulsi was 1,000% right. He's a bullshitter, and his communications director is an idiot for tweeting that out. NBC News, look what they did. So they were doing this to Bernie before. So when Bernie would say something great, they would quote it and attribute it to Elizabeth Warren. So now Tulsi totally nails him. This is the quote they tweet out. NBC News tweets this out. Remember, NBC News, there couldn't be a news organization more in the bed with the CIA than NBC, probably Washington Post. They say, what you've just pointed, this is the quote. The quote is, what you've just pointed out is that you would lack the courage to meet with both adversaries and friends to ensure the peace and national security of our nation, end quote. And who do they attribute it to? They say Mayor Buttigieg slams Representative Gabbard during debate. And that's the quote. No, it was the exact opposite. Are they that incompetent? No, they're not. No, they're not that incompetent. That's not an accident. They were doing, how was it an accident when they did it to Bernie with Elizabeth Warren? It's weird how all the accidents only go one way. Here's secular talk. Remember the last debate when multiple outlets reported that some of Bernie's best lines were Warren's? Well, now we have Mayor Pete getting credit for Tulsi's line against him. Kind of awesome. So there you go. So she was 100% right about that. Mayor Pete totally was wrong on that. He used cheap shots as a comeback. That's all it was, cheap shots. And why I know it's a cheap shot? Because Barack Obama said I'd meet with everybody. And that's all he's got. Come see our live show. We're going to be in Honolulu on December 27th. We'll be in Portland, Oregon, and then we go to Tempe, Arizona, San Jose, California, Sacramento, Miami. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com for a link for all the tickets for all our live shows coming to a town near you, and become a patron or support the Jimmy Dore Show. We give you hours of bonus material every week. Go to jimmydorecomedy.com, become a premium member. Thanks for your support.